Good morning, students. Today I am going to deliver my lecture about rape trauma syndrome (RTS), which is a topic under our forensic psychology course. Rape trauma syndrome is basically a type of post traumatic stress disorder. However, it is different from it because it specifically deals with traumatic syndromes, traumatic experiences which have aroused due to sexual assault or sexual victimization. It is a common reaction to all type of sexual assaults, whether it's rape or minor sexual assault including comments, stabbing, kidnapping, which includes some or other kinds of sexual victimization. As I already said, it is similar to post-traumatic stress disorder. However, some of its reactions are so specific and distinct that it has been given a separate name, rape trauma syndrome. Although the reactions to rape or sexual assault might vary from individual to individual, highly depending on their age, maturity, experiences with life, support systems they have, coping mechanism they have, their personality, etc. However, there is no difference in a common type of symptoms, common reactions they show after their victimization experiences. And this cluster of reaction we call rape trauma syndrome. Most victims show these predictable range of emotions. After this sexual victimization, it is very common to show some kinds of emotional reactions, and together these reactions constitute the rape trauma syndrome. So, what Burgess and Holmstrom, who coined these terms, define it as a syndrome of behavioral, somatic, and psychological reactions in an accurate stress reactions to a life-threatening situation. This term, rape trauma syndrome, was coined on the basis of a study conducted at the Boston City Hospital between 1972 to 73 by Wilbert Burgess and Linda Holmstrom, and on the basis of this study they coined this term rape trauma syndrome. This study consisted of 92 interviews of rape victims who were brought to the hospital emergency ward post their victimization. These interviews were conducted as early as within 30 minutes after admission to the hospital, and follow-ups were conducted for as long as 1 year period after the victimization or hospital admission. It was done through telephones or through home visits to these victims. Usually we believe a common myth is that some people are susceptible to rape. Often we hear people saying that sexual assault are invited by the victims, which is a common myth. So this study also give us strong reasons that all these myths are irrelevant. The sample they interviewed for coining this term was heterogeneous, clearly heterogeneous. The age range of victims was from 17 to 73. 73-year-old. Their occupation was variety, no one occupation. Usually we hear people saying that a person in this particular occupation are more susceptible, or that particular occupation is more susceptible, but this sample shows that it does not have any relationship with occupation, cause rape victims were from variety of occupations. There was no clear ethnic regions. All these victims represented variety of ethnic background, varieties in social classes. They ranged in their physical attractiveness. Often we believe that physically attractive people are more prone, but the physical attractiveness of all these victims were various, and their dresses were also in various style ranges. So the attribution to these sexual assault to race to the type or style of dress is also a strong myth. So they interviewed this heterogeneous sample and found a common range of symptoms which these victims show for post their victimization, and they called it rape trauma syndrome. They found these major symptoms of rape trauma syndrome was experiencing and re-experiencing of the trauma. They found that rape victims experience recurrent nightmares about the rape. So it's not only the experience but also reoccurrence, and again they feel and show these nightmares about the rapes. They often get flashbacks about the incidents, and they often show the inability to stop remembering the rape. They tend to remember these experiences again and again, and they found it very difficult to stop remembering these incidences. They also show social withdrawal, which we often call psychic numbing. So basically, these people after this incidents withdraw themselves totally from their social surroundings. They does not involve in social gathering around them, and they don't experience feeling of any kind in presence of people or in absence of people. We call it psychic numbing. They also show avoidance behaviors and actions. They avoid feelings, actions, thoughts that might recall events about the rape, that might help them recall what happened during the victimization experience. This syndrome is also marked by increased physical arousal. They show exaggerated startle response. They show hypervigilance. They are susceptible to even small changes in their environment. They may show sleep disturbances, and they found it very difficult to concentrate on things that are going around them. Although each individual's experience to such kind of victimization is unique, however, majority of these victims and those who experience rape trauma syndrome after their victimization often process their trauma in a series of stages, which we call stages of rape trauma syndrome. There are at least 5 stages of rape trauma syndrome. The first is acute stage, which follows immediately after the violent action and can go up to weeks, several weeks. Then outward adjustment state start after few weeks and can go up to 1 year or even after that. Underground stage, when the trauma start to be normalized and people start returning to their normal life. Reorganization stage, when some trigger or some life changes result in relapse of those acute or outward stages. And then renormalization stage, which comes when the victim finally think and develop skills to deal with the trauma. So first we'll talk about the acute stage. As I said, the acute stage can start at the time of the victimization or several weeks after the experience of victimization, and it can continue for next few weeks after it starts. In this stage, victims undergo acute somatic manifestations, which can be marked by physical trauma, which includes general sores, bruising in the throat, neck, breast, thighs, legs, and arms. So they may experience pressing symptoms in all over their body. These somatic manifestations also involve skeletal muscle tension, which include tension, headache, fatigue, sleep pattern disturbances, edginess, which involves jumping over small or minor negligible incidences. They also show gastrointestinal irritability, which includes somatic pains, loss of appetite, vomiting, nausea, etc. They also show marked genitourinary disturbances, which may include vaginal discharge, itching, burning sensation or on urination, and a kind of generalized pain around their genital organs. Apart from these manifestations, they also show some emotional symptoms, which include feeling of fear, humiliation, embarrassment about what happened to them, anger, and many of the times self-blame. This self-blame is a marked characteristic of any sexual assault. We can see this with an interview excerpt which shows that, which is clearly visible in this example. The victim says, I keep wondering maybe if I had done something different when I first saw him, that it wouldn't have happened. Neither he nor I would be in trouble. See the amount of self-blame. The victim is considering herself responsible for what happened to her as well as to the offender. Maybe it was my fault. See, that's where I get when I think about it. My father always said, whatever a man did to woman, she provoked it. So the self-blame originates from the kind of society we are living in, the kind of learnings that are being given to women by their parents, surrounding society, etc. The second stage, the other symptoms after this is emotional, and victims show various kinds or range of emotional which we can club under various emotional styles. So they may show expressed emotional style, They may show controlled emotional style, or they may show symptoms of shocked disbelief. Those victims who show expressed emotional style, they show feelings of fear, anger, anxiety, and often these fears and anxieties are revealed through crying, sobbing, smiling, restlessness, and tenseness. So their emotions, pleasant or unpleasant, they are always expressed in their behavior. In opposition to that, few victims may also show controlled emotional style. They mask or hide their feelings and often show composed and calm affect. So they are very calm after this incident. They don't talk anything about it. Nothing can be read from their faces, and often they are very calm and composed in their reactions. The other kind of victim may show symptoms of shocked disbelief, and these victims react with a strong sense of disorientation. They show difficulty in concentrating, difficulty in making decisions, or they even find it difficult to do their everyday tasks. Many of the time they have poor recall of the assault. They are unable to recall what happened at the time of their assault. So these are three emotional style that may follow after the incidents of sexual violence. After the acute stage comes outward adjustment state. It starts after the acute stage and can last for 6 months to a year or even longer if it is not interrupted or cared about. During this stage, the victim may outwardly appear to have moved on. People may think that the victim has moved on from assault and he or she is normal. However, there are serious inner turmoil. The outward adjustment stage is marked by serious inner turmoils. The victim may show wide range of coping mechanism. They use a variety of coping mechanism such as minimizing, pretending that everything is fine, or the assault was not a big deal. It has happened, now I have moved on. There was nothing big that happened. They may also show dramatization. They keep talking about the assault, more details, more elaborations, and they find it difficult to stop talking about the assault. Some victims may show suppression. They refuse to discuss this incidents. They seem to have forgotten everything about the incidents. Some victim may show explanation. They keep on analyzing what had happened, keep on thinking about how, where, what had happened, what could have been done to avoid this incident. Or some victims may show flight responses. They may move to a new home, new city. They alter their appearance. They change their mobile number. They minimize or stop their social contacts, etc. This outward adjustment stage is characterized by a variety of symptoms. Some common symptoms during this stage are poor health, in general health related problems, continuous anxiety about unknown things, sense of helplessness, hypervigilance, jumping on small things, minor things, inability to maintain previous close relationships. They often make distance from previous relationships. Experiencing a general response of nervousness or startle response. Persistent fear about known or unknown things. Frequent mood swings from relatively happy to depressed or extreme anger and hostility. Marked sleep disturbance, which may lead to insomnia, vivid dreams, and recurring nightmares related to the victimization experiences. They often show flashbacks, and intrusive thoughts about the assault. They may show dissociations. They may feel like one is not attached to one's body. They show feelings that they are not one which is inside their body. They often show panic attacks. During this stage, they increase their reliance on coping mechanisms. And these coping mechanisms may be adaptive or it may be counterproductive. Counterproductive, it seems to be adaptive in the beginning, but later on it creates more problems. So adaptive coping mechanism involves relying on support of family or friends, practicing mindfulness, increased self-care, and counterproductive coping mechanisms include self-harm, suicidal thoughts or behaviors, drug or alcohol abuse, high-risk sexual behaviors. It is also seen that in few cases the rape survivors indulge in sexual behaviors, and the counterproductive adjustment coping mechanism may also be seen in disordered eating. Major lifestyle changes are also seen in this stage, which is marked by increased motor activity, changes of residence, going on trips, changing telephone numbers, minimizing or maximizing social contacts. They often are hesitant on to enter into new relationships. They start questioning their sexual identity or sexual orientation. They re-look into their sexual identity, and they may have disrupted sexual relationships or disrupted sexuality. They find it difficult to reestablish their normal sexual relationships. They show inhibited sexual responses. Even if they engage in sexual activity, they often get flashbacks about their victimization, sexual assault, and in some cases, the victims may often show hypersexuality following the sexual victimization. This stage is also marked by occurrence of nightmares, which may broadly be categorized into two categories. One in which victim wishes to do something but wakes before acting, and another in which victim is able to fight off her attacker. We can understand these two types of nightmares from the examples that are following. So first version. I had a terrifying nightmare and shock for 2 days. I was at work and there was this maniac killer in the store. He killed two of the sales girls by slitting their throat. I would go to set the time clock, and when I came back, the two girls were dead. I thought I was next. I had to go home. On the way, I ran into two girls I knew. We were walking along and we ran into the maniac killer, and he was the man who attacked me during the sexual assault. So in dream also they see the same offender often. One of the girl held back and said, "No, I am staying here." I said I know him and was going to fight him. At this point I woke up with the terrible fear of impending doom and fret. So that is first kind of nightmare in which the victim want to do something but wake up before acting. I knew the knife part was real because it was the same knife the man held to my throat during the sexual victimization. The second example, victim reported the dream 1 month after the rape, and this dream goes by. I had a knife and I was with the guy who committed this crime. I went to stab him and the knife bent. I did it again and he started bleeding. He died. Then I walked away laughing and the knife in my hand. So, in this type of nightmare, the victim is able to fight off and take revenge from the offender. We also see developing traumatophobia in victims in this stage. They often show phobic reaction to traumatic situation, and some common phobias reactions are feel fear of indoors. For example, in this quote, the victim says, "I feel better outside. I can see what is coming. I feel trapped inside." So the person find it difficult to be indoor. Usually it happens when the incidents have took place in closed doors. Second type of traumatophobia is fear of outdoor, which develops usually when the incidents happen in outdoors. Like this victim says, "It is sheer terror for every step I take. I can't wait to go to the safety of my place." The third phobia is fear of being alone. "I can't stand being alone. I hear every little noise, the window cracking. I'm a bundle of nerves. I'm easily jumped up." Fear of crowd. "When I'm in crowd, I get the bad thought. I will look at a guy and if he looks really weird, I will hope something bad will happen to him." And another traumatophobia is fear of people being behind them. "When I feel someone is behind me, my heart starts pounding. Last week I turned on a guy that was walking in back of me and I waited till he walked by. I just couldn't stand that somebody is behind me." The third stage after outward adjustment stage is underground stage, in which the victim work to return to their normal lives. This stage may last for years and there is limited disruptions to their daily life. They engage in their daily life and seems to be living their normal life. The emotional issues surrounding the assault may continue to be unresolved. They may feel some pain, sadness. However, they seem to be okay with it and moved on. In this stage, the victim may attempt to return to their life as if nothing had happened to them. They may often block thoughts of this assault from their mind and may not want to talk about the incidents or any other related issue with anybody. They may show difficulty in concentrating and may show some symptoms of depression. They may also show some dissociation and symptoms of hypervigilance, but in general, they seemed to live their life normally. In the fourth stage, the reorganization stage, there is an external trigger which moves the survivor from previous stages, either underground or outwards adjustment stage. So an external trigger, which may be a life transition or any other region that may not clear to the survivor or to their loved ones, it may trigger and then move the victim back to their underground or outward adjustment stage. The length of this reorganization can vary. It can end when a survivor returns to outward adjustment stage or underground stage, or it may continue when they are not able to deal with it, or when they are able to resolve this trauma and moved on, they may lead to next stage, and this reorganization stage may vary. So there is no definite timeline for this reorganization stage. For some victims it may end quickly, and for some it may take years to again re-stabilize. Reorganization stage is characterized by a return of internal and external emotional turmoil. So again the person is under extreme emotional reactions. The friend and family, even the therapist of the victim might be confused and might be thinking why this feeling and behavior is returned which was resolved. Even victim may feel surprised. They may feel fear and confusion at this stage cause they believed that they have moved on, but then in this stage strong feeling about the assault may return back. Once the victim is able to deal with this stage, the reoccurrence of emotional and behavioral symptoms in this stage, then he moves on to reorganization stage. In this reorganization stage, victim may experience fear and phobias. It is not that their fear and phobias are permanently gone. They may experience this, especially those fears and phobias that were specifically related to the circumstances or the attack. Or they may also have more generalized fear and phobias of being in crowd, being left alone anywhere, fear of being men or women, fear of going out at all, fear of being touched, fear of being watched, fear of being followed, and all. They may also have specific fears related to certain characteristics of the assailant, the offender. For example, the sideburns, the straight hair which the offender had, the smell of alcohol or cigarette, type of clothing or cars. So the specific characteristics of the offender might be the region of fear, and they may develop phobias around them. There might be general suspicious or paranoid feeling about strangers, generalized suspicion about strangers. There might be appetite disturbances such as nausea and vomiting. These survivors may also develop disordered eating pattern at this time. So they either eat too much or eat very less. They often may have nightmares and other sleep disturbances. Violent fantasies of revenge may also arise. They may fantasize taking revenge from the offender, and they may also show increased thoughts and risks of suicide. In this stage, the survivor reprocess their experience and are able to integrate into their lives. So all these phobias, fear, trauma, they reprocess it and then integrate it into their life, and they realize that I have to go with it. The assault or rape is no longer a central focus for them. It is something for them. It is something which will be there all the time, but that is not the central focus. Feeling of guilt or shame resolved at this stage. Survivor in this stage are able to recognize and address secondary consequences of maladaptive coping mechanism. So we talked about counterproductive coping mechanism of alcohol abuse or all. So at this stage, renormalization stage, they are able to recognize that other than keeping us normal, these maladaptive coping mechanisms are also harmful or may have side effects. While victims may look upon the sexual assault and its aftermath with sadness, there will always be sadness about the event. However, the feeling generated by it is not as strong as it used to be in other previous stages. It is not overwhelming, and it is not at all disruptive to their normal life functioning. So in this stage, we see that people seem to be moved on and into their normal lives, and that normalcy is relatively permanent in their life. We may also see two distinct variations in this rape trauma syndrome. So one variation is compound reaction. When women have past psychiatric or social behavioral problems, they may experience compound effect after the sexual assault. So these symptoms of these assault, experiences of this assault, compounded with already existing psychological and psychiatric behaviors, and it may even make it more complex. However, these victims are in minority. The silent reactions occur in women who at first did not tell anyone about this incident, and there are chances that victims of these silent reaction often had been through this experience before, and then this current sexual assault experience reactivate their prior experience, and then the reactions and emotional experience of these two incidences mix up and develop into this rape trauma syndrome. So these are all about this syndrome. We find that the silent reaction victims carry unresolved issue with them for years. They exhibit increased anxiety, long period of silence, stuttering, avoidance of relationships with men, marked change in their sexual behaviors, phobic reactions, and loss of self-confidence. Often these symptoms are curable, and victims need a sympathetic psychological intervention which help them deal with these reactions and emotional trauma, and help them regain their normalcy in later years of their life. So that was all about this rape trauma syndrome. If you have any problem, question, you may always contact me on my personal window. Thank you. Jai Hind.